When my daughter found the guardianship papers and the DNA test confirming I wasn't her biological mother, she trashed the house. She smashed family photos, tore up papers, and ran away screaming. I stood in the hallway with a bloody palm, the shards of the frame embedded in my skin, and couldn't believe that everything I'd spent 30 years building had suddenly turned to ashes. I didn't betray her, I saved her. But the truth I'd kept for so many years became my death sentence. I had only one thing left to do: find whoever planted those documents on her and understand why someone wanted to destroy everything we had. And then, standing amid the rubble, I promised myself I would find out the truth, even if I had to follow a trail tainted with the poison of someone else's intentions. My name is Evelyn. I am 68 years old. I pressed a dish towel to my palm and watched the front door slam. That hollow thud that makes you feel small in your own house. The living room looked like a bad yard sale after a storm. Picture glass everywhere, our Christmas ornaments from the year she first called me. Mom rolled under the sofa, one little red bulb blinking like a cheap warning light. My first thought was that I'd failed her. My second thought, quick and hot, was that someone had set me up. I picked up the DNA printout she'd hurled at me. The paper felt damp from her tears, from mine. It wasn't wrong. I knew it wasn't wrong. But it was cruel to push it at her like that, out of context, like a match to dry leaves. The guardianship order was tucked into the same folder. Copies from the courthouse box in the garage, but not where I'd left them. The staples were fresh, I could tell by the sharp bend. Someone had gathered these like a bouquet and placed them where she'd find them, that someone knew exactly where to press on an old bruise. I sat at the kitchen table, palm throbbing, and dialed her cell, straight to voicemail. "Baby," I said, hearing my voice shake. "Come home." "Let me explain. You didn't do anything wrong, and I didn't betray you." I paused, swallowing a lump, and added what I hadn't said out loud in years. "I will fix this. I promise." Even as I said it, I felt the old steel slide back into place inside me. If I had to dig through 3 decades of secrets to keep her safe again, I would. I'd done it once. I knew what I was capable of. By sunset, the house was quiet enough to hear the hum of the fridge. I swept glass into a dustpan and remembered the first time I saw her, small, wild-eyed, shivering on my porch in a hoodie that smelled like smoke. She'd been 16 then, all bones and fight, saying she was hungry but didn't want charity. I made grilled cheese and hot chocolate and told her I had to call someone. She said if I did, she'd run. I said, "Eat first." She ate like she didn't trust the next bite would be there. That night changed everything. I'd kept her. The state had blessed it later. The paperwork said guardian. Life said mother. The betrayal scene replayed in my head like a bad sitcom rerun that won't quit. Her face when she saw the folder, the way she said, "You lied to me." I wanted to shout back that I had lied to protect her from a past that could have swallowed her whole. Instead, I said the wrong thing, something soft when she needed a hard fact. She flung the photo of us at the lake, the one where she's in a pink baseball cap and I'm sunburned, grinning. The frame burst against the wall. "How could you do this to me?" she sobbed. And the voice in my own head howled, "How could my daughter do this to me?" I didn't sleep. I made coffee and a list. People who knew about the guardianship, our lawyer back then, the judge, my sister Luann, and one more, someone I hadn't let myself think about in 25 years. The one person who'd been there the night everything changed. A name I had folded up and put in the back of my heart like a dangerous note. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel, like it, and let me know in the comments what time it is when you listen to this story. At dawn, I drove to Luann's. She opened the door in a robe with lemons on it, hair in a clip, eyes already braced the way sisters do when they sense bad news. I told her about the papers, the DNA results. She pressed her fingers to her lips. "Evie, who else knew where you kept that stuff?" "No one," I said, then corrected myself. "Anyone who's been in my garage could have seen the boxes. But this felt personal." Luann made eggs I didn't eat and told me I was shaking. "I'm fine," I lied. "Has she called you?" She shook her head. We sat with that. Then she said, carefully, "Do you think, you know, that she's back?" I didn't answer. I didn't have to. I went home and found a message on my landline from a blocked number, just breathing, the kind that says, "I want you to know I'm here, but I'm not going to help you." I poured it into my notebook, time, date, what I heard. If someone wanted to play cat and mouse with me, I could play too, but I'd keep receipts. A week crawled by like a bad Sunday. Every morning I walked to the curb hoping for a letter from my girl. Every night I prayed the prayer of mothers who have no words left. Keep her safe. On the seventh day, the mail slot clapped and a thick envelope hit the rug. A week after her escape, I received an anonymous letter. Inside was a copy of my birth certificate with my name crossed out and a note. "You knew. You chose to lie. Now she knows everything." I didn't recognize the handwriting, but the scent of perfume on the paper was all too familiar. It was the perfume of the woman who disappeared from our lives 25 years ago. A friend I trusted as if she were myself. The woman who vanished after one night, leaving me with a child in silence. So she was back, and that meant all this wasn't an accident, but a carefully planned revenge. I sat on the bottom stair, letter in one hand, that perfume pulling me straight through years. It was her, or someone who knew her down to her pulse. The scent was gardenia with a sharp, powdery top, old-fashioned and stubborn, the kind you could smell before she turned a corner. I found myself angry at the memory of loving that smell. We'd worked at the same diner, pulled doubles, laughed till closing. One summer night, she'd come to my door with a sobbing teenager and a story that didn't line up. By morning, she was gone, and the girl was asleep on my couch clutching a chipped mug. The rest was hearings and signatures and the slow work of trust. I took the note to the police station and showed it to a young officer with a polite face. He nodded, wrote it up, told me to get a security camera. "Anything else we can do tonight?" I asked. He said they could flag the number if it called again. I thanked him and walked out feeling like I'd just paid for a meal I couldn't afford and left still hungry. Paperwork is a cold blanket when your house is on fire. I didn't need a blanket. I needed to know who was striking matches. So I tried something simple. I called the florist 2 blocks from our old diner and asked if they carried a certain gardenia sweet perfume. "We don't," the owner said, "but I know who does. There's an antique shop 2 towns over. The owner keeps those vintage scents." My heart picked up like a bird. I asked for the name. He said it, and the air went out of the room. I recognized the last name, the one she used to flirt with, like a stage name. I drove out there because sometimes your feet know the truth before your head allows it. The shop was full of delicate glass and old mirrors that reflect you a little kinder than you are. A bell chimed when I opened the door, and I thought, if she's here, she's already seen me in every mirror in this place. A woman stepped out from behind a walnut cabinet. She had my friend's mouth, that sideways smile that used to get us free pie, but her hair was steel gray now, and her eyes were careful. "Can I help you?" she asked, like we'd never shared secrets over a fry cook's smoke. I stood very still. "You can," I said. "You can tell me why you sent an envelope that made my daughter run." Her face didn't change, not even a twitch. That told me everything. "We're open until 5, she said. "If you'd like to look around." My palm tingled, scar pulling. "You think I won't say your name?" I asked. "You think I won't say what you did? You brought a child to my door and disappeared." She blinked once, slow. "I did," she said, voice soft like we were in church. "And you kept her?" Then she turned, motioned toward a display of perfumes. "We have what you're looking for." Over here, it was a dare wrapped in customer service. I didn't follow her. I stepped closer instead. "Why now?" Her mouth curled. "Because now she's old enough to know." "She was old enough to know kindness that night," I said. "She was old enough to know a hot meal." I heard my voice rise and felt eyes on us from the back of the shop. "She was old enough to know you left." "We all leave," she said lightly. "Some sooner. Some later." I said her name then, the one that still tasted like cigarettes in summer. She flinched, just a hair. She wasn't invincible. "You sent that envelope," I said. "You made her break our home." She lifted a bottle, held it to the light. "She broke nothing that wasn't already cracked," she said. You did that when you lied? My blood hummed. I told her what she needed to survive. I chose her over your mess, over the man who hurt you, over the cops who would have turned her into a case number. Her eyes finally met mine. Truth is not a luxury, Evelyn. No, I said, it's a tool, and I know how to use it. Even as I said it, a part of me was stepping back, planning, counting. Social revenge, not the kind that lands you in cuffs. I needed the kind that restores what was taken. I left without buying a thing, though the bell chimed again like it was trying to be friendly. I sat in my car and let my hands shake. Then I called Luann. She's alive, I said. She has a shop. She is bold enough to spray her old perfume on my pain. Do not go back in there alone, Luann said. Come home. Eat. We'll think on the drive the radio droned about rising prices and another big storm forming out east. People everywhere are juggling bad news these days, and I felt less alone for a moment, just one more mother trying to hang on while the headlines pound like rain on a tin roof. That night, I took a shoebox from the top of my closet and spread the contents on my bed. Notes I'd written to myself the year my girl arrived. Receipts from the diner. A tiny video camera we'd used when she struggled to sleep. How I'd set it up in the hall to catch her pacing so I could meet her with tea before she wore a groove in the rug. Back then, privacy had been a puzzle we worked through together. What's safe to share? What helps you heal? She'd agreed to some recordings to show the counselor how nights went. I wondered now if any of that could protect me from the story that was being told about me without me. I went to the garage and looked at the court boxes. Nothing else was missing. Whoever grabbed those documents had been careful, precise. That meant access. That meant trust somewhere had thinned. I thought of my bridge club, of neighbors who asked too many questions. Then I thought of a simpler truth. I'd been sloppy. Grief makes you lazy. Love makes you assume the best. Someone had used both against me. The phone rang near midnight. The same block number. I answered and stayed silent. A woman's breath, then a soft laugh, like the kind you make at a secret joke. She knows, the voice said. You can stop pretending. Come say that to my face, I said, keeping my tone level. Or are you only brave with stamps and perfume? A pause. You always did have a mouth, she said, and clicked off. I wrote the words down in my notebook exactly as I remembered them. I'd learned long ago that details save you when your heart wants to edit. Then I did something I should have done day one. I called our old lawyer, Mr. Hadley, retired now but sharp. He answered on the third ring, surprised and pleased to hear my voice. I told him enough. He cleared his throat. Evelyn, he said, truth is a shy cat. It takes patience, but we can coax it. He recommended a private investigator he trusted, a woman named Maurice, former journalist who'd lost patience with editors and discovered that facts pay better when you bring them to scared people who need them. Maris met me at a bakery that still used real butter. She was in her 50s, no nonsense, nails short, eyes warm. I handed her the note, the envelope, a list of names. Start with the antique shop, I said, and find out who's helping her. Maris nodded, asked clean, direct questions, and took photos of everything with her phone. I'll be straight, she said. This is going to stir old mud. My shoes are already ruined, I said. Just try not to splash my daughter more than she's been splashed. 2 days later, Maris called. Your friend's business license is under a new last name, she said. She changed it 15 years ago, no partner on paper, but she pays a man for deliveries every Tuesday. He used to work at our old courthouse. My stomach dropped. Access to records, to seals, to boxes. Name? I asked. She told me, and I remembered a notary who always had a joke for me when my hands shook over signatures. I felt the next step like a click in my bones. This wasn't just personal, it was practical. Someone had used public files in a private war. That meant leverage. It meant I could take this into daylight without getting trapped in gossip. If I played it right, the truth could stand on its own feet. That evening, Luann and I sat at my table with legal pads. Like we were back in high school. We listed what I could show without harming my girl further. The first night video where she whispered, "I don't want to go back." The old counselor's letter about her fear of a certain man, the texts from years later when she thanked me for sticking by her during detox and said, "You saved my life." There's a way to share a story that doesn't sell your child. It holds the line between honesty and exposure. I would not cross it, but I could walk right up to it and point. My doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole and saw a flower delivery guy holding lilies. I opened the door, cautious as a cat. The card was blank, except for a line in the corner. "You always preferred roses." I laughed, an ugly, unexpected bark. "You're slipping," I muttered. She used to hate lilies. She said they smelled like funerals. I called Maris again. "Can you check camera footage near the shop?" I asked. "See who she meets after hours?" Maris said she already had. "She meets no one," she said. "But there's a car that idles at the end of the block on Thursdays, windows tinted, plates registered to a Shell LLC. I'll dig." That night I lay awake and made another list. This one wasn't of facts, it was of boundaries. I would not smear my daughter's beginnings. I would not make a spectacle. I would not answer bait with bait. But I would protect my name and my right to be the mother I had been for 3 decades. Social revenge, done with calm hands, expose the lie that I was a liar. That kind of justice lands where it should, on reputation, on access, on the quiet doors people like my old friend love to slip through. Morning came with a text from a number I didn't know, a photo of my front porch. The message said, "Cute wreath." I felt heat along my spine, but forced my thumbs to be steady. I replied, "Camera works great. Say cheese." And then I sent the photo to Maris, who told me to sit tight while she traced it. 10 minutes later, she wrote back, "Prepaid burner, purchased with cash at a store 2 blocks from the antique shop. Bold or sloppy, I couldn't tell which. Here's the second introduction I owe you. When I was 38, my first marriage ended in a quiet disaster. No shouting, just the slow fade of a man who wanted a different life. I rebuilt, I learned to change my own tire and unclog a sink. When my girl arrived, I'd already grown that muscle you need to carry someone else's weight. I tell you this because people think mothers like me are made by the children we keep. We're made by the days before that taught us how to stand in a windstorm and not topple." Maris called that afternoon, voice bright in a way that meant she had something. "The man paid for the burner also withdrew cash from an ATM next door," she said. "Camera caught him. Guess who? She named the former courthouse notary. And there's more. He's been meeting your old friend at a coffee shop on the edge of town. I have photos I met Maris at her office. She slid pictures across the desk, grainy but clear enough. My past sitting with a man in a cap, her smile tight, his eyes on the door. She showed me a still of him carrying a box that looked a whole lot like the county storage standard. He's been sloppy," she said, "or he wants to be seen." "Why now?" I asked again, the question chewing at me. Why cut the cord after all these years? And why in the most painful way? She could have called. She could have faced me. "She wants your daughter mad," Maris said simply. "What makes a daughter madder than proof a mother lied?" "It's elegant. If you're cruel," I nodded. "Can you find out who owns the LLC with the tinted car?" She grinned. "Already on it." That night, I recorded a video on my old iPad. I didn't post it anywhere. It was for me and for my girl if she ever wanted it. I told the story of the night she came. I said what I could say without naming names, without dragging ghosts. I said I would not fight her, but I would fight for the truth. I said love doesn't flinch from daylight. I cried once, wiped it away, left it in, then I backed it up on a drive and put the drive in my freezer because old superstitions keep me company when logic won't. The next day brought an email from a throwaway account. "Meet me," it read, with an address behind the high school. I knew better than to go alone. I forwarded it to Maris and the detective who had taken my earlier report. The detective texted, "We'll patrol the area." Maris said, "I'll be nearby." I went because sometimes you have to show up to your own life. The bleachers smelled like cut grass and teenage bravado. A figure approached in a hoodie, hands in pockets. For a second, my heart thought it was my girl. Then the shape resolved into the notary. Older now, jaw softer, eyes harder. "You look good," he said, like we were at the farmer's market. "You stole from the courthouse," I said. "You tampered with my life." He shrugged. "Wasn't hard. Everyone's busy." "Why?" I asked. "Money? Favor?" He rubbed his thumb over his forefinger. "Both." "For who?" I asked, though I knew. "For a woman who said you stole her child." I stepped closer. "She left her with me." He looked bored. "Stories vary." He took out a pack of gum, popped a piece, offered me one like we were at intermission. "She says you kept the kid out of spite. Says you were jealous." I laughed, low and meaner than I meant. Jealous of what? Her chaos? Her men who hurt her? Her needle? His eyes flicked just once. There it was, the vein of truth that ran under all of this, the thing we both knew, but he hadn't expected me to say. "You can tell her I said that," I added. "You can tell her I will say it to her face." He chewed, stared past me at the field. "She wants you to squirm," he said. "She's waited a long time." "I don't squirm," I said. "I stand." I looked at the shadows beyond the fence and saw Maris's silhouette, patient as a lighthouse. "You should find a different hobby," I told him. "This one comes with consequences." He smiled. "Consequences are for people who get caught." "Here's the thing," I said, stepping back. "You're already caught." I nodded toward the cruiser idling at the curb. The detective leaned on the hood, watching us like a baseball scout. The notary turned, swore under his breath. "Have a nice day," I said, and walked away. That night, someone keyed my car. Not a message, just a long, angry line down the side. I stood looking at it and felt a moment of grief for the peace I used to take for granted, the way you grieve a neighbor who moves away. Then I called my insurance and a body shop, got an appointment, and texted Maris a photo. "Escalation," she replied. "They're sloppy and mad." Good. People make mistakes when they're mad. I set another boundary list, added a plan. I would host a small gathering with the people who mattered. Luann, Mr. Hadley, our old counselor who still practiced nearby, 2 neighbors who had known our story in its bones. I would tell them what had happened and ask them to write statements about what they witnessed back then. The night my girl arrived, the months after the detox, the court hearings no one could quite forget. I would not smear, but I would not be quiet. If this turned into a public fight, I wanted the truth ready, like a packed bag, by the door. The night before the gathering, I found a scrap of newspaper on my porch, an old article about a burglary at a pharmacy 26 years ago. 3 teens suspected, no arrests. Someone had circled a name in red, my girl's birth name, the one she had shed like an old skin. My hand shook, and for a second I felt 16 again. Myself, scared and cornered. Then I took a breath. I set the article on the table and poured tea. This was the strategy, make me look like I'd protected a criminal. But the truth was softer and harder. She had been a kid, running with older kids, and she had come to me to stop running. At the gathering, we sat in my living room with coffee and banana bread. I told the story straight. Mr. Hadley nodded. The counselor added details I'd forgotten. Luann cried a little. My neighbor Ruth said, "You were the only person who kept showing up." We wrote statements, clear and simple. I put them in a folder labeled with the one word I still trusted: grace. Not for my old friend, for my daughter, and for myself. When everyone left, the house was quiet again. I picked up a broken photo frame I had missed and pressed it back together as best I could. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number, a photo of me at the antique shop door, captioned, "Nostalgia suits you." I forwarded it to Maris. She replied, "Final piece is almost ready. The LLC owns the car, belongs to someone who just might interest the state licensing board." I smiled for the first time in days. Social justice can look like paperwork when it goes where it should. I didn't want anyone in handcuffs. I wanted them where they hated to be, exposed, questioned, cut off from quiet favors. I wanted the rumor mill they had fed to turn and grind their own lies down to chaff. My last act that night was to write a letter to my girl, not an email that could be forwarded, not a text that could be screenshot and mocked. A letter in my careful cursive, folded into an envelope addressed to the name she chose for herself when she turned 18. I told her I was here. I told her I would always answer her calls. I told her stories she had heard and one she hadn't, about a woman who left a child on my couch and vanished, about the day I signed papers that said I could keep doing what I was already doing, loving her, feeding her, getting up at 3 a.m. to hold her while the old night terrors passed. I told her I had proof, but proof would wait until she wanted it. I sealed the letter and set it by the door. As I turned off the light, my phone pinged. One more text, this one from a number I recognized, a friend of my daughter's from way back. "She's with me," it read. "She's safe. She's angry, but she's listening." I sat on the bottom stair again, the way I had when the perfume letter came, and I let relief wash through me like warm water. The next move would be hers. The plan was in place. The truth had its shoes on. The people who tried to smear me were about to find out what it feels like when daylight walks in and stays. We stood among mirrors that made both of us look softer than we were. I said, "You sent the envelope?" She didn't blink. "She deserved the facts," she said. "Facts," I repeated. "Or a weapon?" She lifted a vintage brooch and pinned it to a velvet bust like she was crowning herself. "You're not the hero you think," she murmured. I let the words pass. "Come with me," I said. 1 hour. You, me, a counselor who knew us then. No cameras, no audience. Let's give her a clean truth. She smiled like a closed door. "I'm busy." My phone buzzed as I stepped outside. "Maris, LLC is tied to the notary's cousin. Car shows up on your block in the shop. Also, found payment transfers labeled us consult." I typed, "From who to who?" She replied, "From shop owner to a man in his 40s, prior arrests for fraud, 2 counties over." The air went thin. A hired part? A role to play when the time was right? That night, a message arrived through an old email I rarely used. "Tomorrow, noon, courthouse steps, bring your proof or fold no signature." I forwarded it to Mr. Hadley and Maris. He wrote back, "We'll be there." Maris added, "Camera ready, statements printed." I sat at the table and felt the choice slide toward me like a bill on a check tray. Fight or let go. If I let go, the lie would harden. If I fought, I had to keep my promise to protect my girl's dignity. I breathed, pictured that boundary line, and chose. On the courthouse steps the next day, wind cut through my sweater, prices keep climbing, storms keep rolling in, and still, here we were, small people holding our small corner against a world that never slows down. She arrived first, antique shop smile, sunglasses, perfume like a memory I didn't want. Then he appeared from behind her shoulder, tall, trim, a practiced hand on a jaw that suggested he'd been in front of a mirror more than a few times. Maris whispered, "Fraud charge, 2011, suspended sentence." Mr. Hadley's mouth tightened. When my daughter came up the walk, her face was a wall. She kept her eyes on me for one steady second and then looked away. "I'm here for the filing," the man said smoothly, shaking a folder like a prize. "Termination of guardianship by deception." He squeezed her fingers. My old friend stood off to the side, satisfied. I stepped forward. "We'll see a judge," I said. "And we'll bring the truth, not the cliff notes." We moved inside, through security, into the low hum of a weekday docket. The clerk gave us a time. In a side hall, my daughter said, barely above a whisper, "You could have told me." I said, "You're right. Then I kept you safe when safety had to come first. I can explain all of it, but not like this. Not in a hallway while someone scripts your lines." Her jaw trembled, then set. "We'll see," she said. In the hearing room, the man presented a petition like a salesman lays out samples. He used phrases he'd memorized: best interest, withheld identity, Psychological harm? The judge, a middle-aged woman whose patience looked well used, asked for proof of paternity. He gestured toward my old friend. Affidavits, he said. The judge raised an eyebrow. DNA? He coughed. In process. Mr. Hadley stood, calm. Your Honor, he said, we object to hearsay and to this filing on standing. Additionally, we have evidence of document tampering and intimidation designed to provoke this very scene. The judge looked to me. Miss Carter, she said. I am Evelyn, I answered, voice steady. I raised her. I have no desire to humiliate anyone, but I won't be painted as a thief of children. Mr. Hadley handed over our packet. The counselor's contemporaneous notes, the dated video from the night she begged not to be sent back, the letters from neighbors, and, crucially, Maris's photos of the notary ferrying boxes and the bank withdrawals tied to the burner phone. We did not mention the girl's birth name or the pharmacy article. We didn't need to. The notary tried to slide out of the room when his name came up. The bailiff invited him to stay. The judge read, slow and thorough. Counsel, she said to the man with the folder, your client lacks standing without paternity or prior relationship. And the court is troubled by evidence that public records were accessed for private harassment. I am dismissing this petition without prejudice. I am also directing the clerk to refer the tampering concerns to the county and the Secretary of State's licensing division. My old friend's face went pale under that stubborn lipstick. The man swallowed hard, the salesman hearing the door lock. She still tried. But she lied, she blurted. The judge looked over her glasses. About what? About being her mother, she said, chin high. Ma'am, the judge answered. Mother is both a noun and a verb. Today we are discussing the verb. The gavel didn't come down. It wasn't that kind of hearing, but it felt like it did. Outside, cameras didn't appear. This wasn't news. It was just our lives. The man slipped away first, fast, as if speed could erase the file Maris had already sent to the board. The notary stood frozen until two investigators in jackets that said nothing but meant everything walked up and asked to talk. My old friend reached for my daughter. Sweetheart, she said, and that word felt like a stain. My girl stepped back. You left me, she said simply. You left me then and used me now. For the first time that day, the older woman's eyes filled. She looked at me as if I'd arranged the weather. You stole, she started. I shook my head. I stayed. We didn't celebrate. We exhaled. In Mr. Hadley's office, my daughter sat on a chair with her knees together like she was bracing for a wave. I told her everything I could without cutting into scars that should be hers to uncover in her time. I told her about the night on my porch, about the weeks after, about the way she hummed when she finally slept 3 hours in a row. I told her about the limits I had set for myself, even when it hurt. I pulled out the letter I'd written and slid it to her. No pressure, I said. Just me. She didn't open it. She pressed it flat with her palm. I don't forgive you today, she said. The words landed and stayed. That's all right, I said. I'm not cashing that check before it clears. A corner of her mouth twitched. You still make dumb jokes, she said. Occupational hazard. Maris knocked and slipped in. Quick update, she said. The licensing board opened an investigation and issued a temporary suspension. The county is reviewing chain of custody logs. And the fraud guy just scrubbed his socials. 5 minutes later, the board's compliance account followed him. Your antique friend posted a long message about misunderstandings and turned off comments. Social consequences aren't loud, but they last. Doors that swung easy start sticking. Invitations dry up. The whisper network reassigns blame to the places it belongs. Weeks passed. My car got repaired. I bought a different wreath. I kept setting the table for one, then two, then one. Again. Some Sundays, she'd text an emoji and nothing else. I learned to accept a tiny blue heart as a whole paragraph. One cold evening, she turned up on my porch steps with a bag of takeout and no makeup. "I'm not moving back," she said. "I didn't ask you to," I answered. We ate lo mein from paper cartons, the good kind that stains the chopsticks. She asked for the video from that first night, the one I'd saved. We watched it, sound low. On the screen, a smaller, braver version of her said, "I don't want to go back." In the real room, she whispered, "Thank you." My old friend sold the shop 3 months later. The notary lost his commission. The man with the folder slipped to another town where I imagine he will find that his references have grown thin. Occasionally, I see a post about vintage perfume in a local group. I scroll past without comment. Winning doesn't always feel like fireworks. Sometimes it feels like quiet, like a lock clicking from the inside, like sleep coming when it should. I won't pretend we became picture perfect. We became honest. That's better. My girl and I set rules for the next stretch. No using the past like a weapon. No third-party surprises. Counselors welcomed. Holidays optional. We practiced a new question that keeps us from spinning out, "What are you afraid will happen?" She asked me once, and I said that you'll go and the house will feel haunted again. I asked her, and she said that I'm only lovable when I'm a rescue. We looked at each other and didn't look away. Justice for us wasn't about someone behind bars. It was about names set straight, about a court record that says we told the truth, about a door that my daughter can walk through without tripping over someone else's mess. It was about returning stolen quiet. It's not fancy. It's solid. It holds. If you've made it this far with me, tell me what you think the moral is. And if this story meant something to you, please subscribe, like, and share a comment so I know you're out there reading with me.
My grandma told me this story. I have many more stories. Subscribe so you don't miss the most interesting